So Dr. Ergun Caner is with us today. He's born in Stockholm, Sweden in 1966. Dr. Caner was raised by a devout Sunni Muslim by his Turkish father who came to America to build mosque. Ergun was led to Christ by a persistent high school friend, and Dr. Caner has been preaching and teaching almost since that day, some 35 years ago. And over the last 25 years, Dr. Caner has been a seminary and college president, professor of evidential apologetics, speaker, and author. He's written over 24 books, which have combined sales of almost 500,000 copies, including Unveiling Islam, which won the ECPA Gold Medallion Award. His books have been published in 11 languages. He earned his Bachelor of Arts from Cumberland College, his Master of Arts from Crystal Tech College in Texas, Master of Divinity, and his Master of Theology from Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary in North Carolina, and his Doctor of Theology from the University of South Africa. That's a lot. But we're glad to have Dr. Ergun Caner as we're talking about apologetics and culture today on the Bucky Kennedy podcast. Well, Ergun, it's good to have you with us today.
That may be the nicest introduction I've ever been given. Thank you for that.
Well, do you need to add anything or subtract anything from that?
I can. I have a Kroger rewards card, and I've got a Shell station thing on my keychain. So
there you go. And that's why we're here. So Ergun and I have known each other for several years, and he is one of what I think has his hand on the pulse of culture and apologetics. So what I've asked him to do is to come on today, and we're going to talk about apologetics and culture. And Ergun, let's start out. Maybe you can define a little bit about what apologetics is.
Yeah, I got into it because it answered some of the more nagging questions. I was a young Christian going to college. I had only been saved about a year and a half, and I entered college, and I'm, it's like a sponge. And every time I'd have a new question, if it didn't really fit with whatever was going on, I'd sort of write it down. Always had this blue notepad that I would write things down in. And apologetics is that. That's for every single person. It's the questions that nag you, and how do you answer them in a way that's cohesive and coherent and, congruent with truth? And how do you explain it to somebody who wasn't raised in the Christian context? That's the form of apologetics I do.
So, and of course, you speak a lot to teenagers and college kids, and I mean that's your world you live in almost. I mean, you really thrive in that culture where they're asking questions and stuff like that about what I love about you is you don't shy away from the hard things.
No, and what I really enjoy doing is just opening up the floor. We learned called Lions Dens, and you do a Lions Den. You tell the kids, I don't want any prepared questions. I just want you to ask me whatever you want to ask me. I've not, they're going to be in the same categories. But every culture, sons of Issachar, First Chronicles tells us the sons of Issachar understood their times. Every single couple of years, we do a flip over, and the questions change, but the answers are always exactly the same. And that's where we're at.
Well, we talked about some topics to talk about, and in classic Ergun Caner fashion, I can't wait to get into these because they're varied and multiple.
Sure.
So
yes, sir.
Let's start chasing those rabbits, my brother. One of the things that we talked about that is really impacting our culture right now is this trans identity movement. And it really is, seems to be more and more parents are having to deal with it. Grandparents are having to deal with it. Systems are trying to placate it and appease. And how do you adjust to it?
Yeah. What's
this all about, Ergun?
Well, like I said, everything has roots in the same questions. It's just in a varied form. It's only been about 4 or 5 years that the crazy 1% have sort of silenced everybody else. But the trans identity movement, the idea that there's multiple pronouns, and it started in our world when the academics started making us say, well, you need to answer their pronouns. You need to call them what they identify as. And so it ended up I think the website changed. The original academic website here in Texas went from 36 to 63 to now there's close to 80 identifying pronouns and identifying identities.
Well, Ergun, I mean, I want to continue this conversation about identity and stuff as we just
Because it also
continue
affects us at the church too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what I want to say though is when we're talking about this, because I mean, you're straightforward, you're blunt, you use a lot of humor, you don't mind doing that. You've always been that. You're consistent in that. But when we're talking about these issues, for instance, the Catholic Church has now just decided that we're going to throw away all our orthodoxy, everything we've believed in the past, and we're going to say that the trans issue is really okay.
Yep.
I mean,
first time they've ever done that.
Yeah. What's going on there?
Well, again, it's a Pope issue. This Pope was a Hans Kuhn disciple. We're off the air. Are we still recording?
And we're still talking on the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. Hans Kuhn, very famous Roman Catholic theologian, who said truth doesn't change, but its mask does. And so you got a Pope who's saying the way we've stated it is wrong. He's not admitting that they're wrong. He said the way that we stated it is wrong. And he's promising a blessing of same-sex unions. He's not saying that they're going to be married in a Catholic church yet, but he's moving that way. And again, the frustration is, what is truth? Either it's right or wrong. It's not a malleable thing that it's going around in circles. And I can now be, as in California, I now identify as a cat, and you have to put a litter box in the bathroom. That's not a joke anymore. A woman married a train station in Oregon. That's not a joke anymore. That's not it sounds like it. It sounds like a setup to a joke, but it's not. It's somebody who absolutely, I'm not questioning their sincerity for 1 second. I'm sure there's some, but I'm not questioning for 1 second. They're searching so hard for what is true and who am I? Look, 4 questions that every religion has to answer, that every movement has to answer, and every philosophy has to answer. Who am I? Why am I here? Where did I come from? Where am I going? If you don't answer those 4 things, that person lives an aimless life. Nobody, because we are designed for a relationship with God, nobody leaves themselves in that mode, saying, I don't know who I am. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know where I came from. I don't know where I'm going. Everybody has to settle on an answer one way or another. And the church, I'm telling you, man, we struggle with it as well as Christians. And it's not an accident. 4 or 5 years ago, we go through COVID. Churches scramble. How are we going to answer this question? People aren't going out of the houses. In some cases, we're being constrained. So we start doing church services online. Okay. And more so than normal. Facebook video, such. Nothing wrong with that. Matter of fact, it has fed me, somebody who is at the moment in cardio rehab, and I can't go out and intersect and interact with other people. But here's the problem. That's not full church. If all I do is watch services online, which is what I'm doing, so I'm right in the middle of it, and it's part of my issue. If all I do is watch services online, it's like watching the Food Network. I don't get to taste the food, but I get to watch it. I get to watch somebody else make it. And that's not good, because I struggle with that. 2 of the definitions of church, 2 of them. One of them is we're the called out. Amen. But we're also community, ecclesia. But we're also community. The hard part for me is I don't really like people. And I love individuals. I just don't like people. And I struggle with that. I struggle with the identity of, as anybody can tell you, I show up to church services about 10 minutes late because it's when the music guy says, turn around and hug 10 people. I'll punch you in the throat. That's not something that I really care about. But that's what God has to fix. My sin is rejecting the community issue. So COVID was actually great for me. I was like, great, I can watch it on TV. It's not great. I'm designed to be part of a team. I'm designed to be part of the people. And I really struggle with that.
So, Ergun, I know that you're a studier of Baptist history, evangelical history, all of those things of pastors and preachers from the 19th, 20th century, and how they were boldly proclaiming righteousness in a culture that they considered dark. I mean, if they saw what we saw today, they were thinking, man, we had it easy. But given the mainline preaching of our day, especially in the evangelical world, what is called mainline evangelical preaching and teaching, how do you think those guys would respond to what's happening today?
Well, there's a parallel. Like I said, every generation's got different questions, but the answers are the same. Billy Sunday fought against alcohol and gambling with every fiber of his being. He actually said that.
Yeah.
Same issue, basically. We're talking about some known sin and a public sin, and how do you address it and how do you deal with it? And he addressed it. Billy Graham had to deal with racial injustice, denominational issues. How did he address it? The real simple thing is you got to stand strong against sin and be loud about it. But they would look at the church and say, why are you giving in? I'm absolutely sure, because we've got them now. Churches that allowed drinking, and we have beer Bible studies now that we see online. Why would you give in? Why do you keep moving? It's like the question of temptation. If you're walking up a mountain and you're asking the typical question the Christian asks, how close can I get to the end? How close can I get to the edge? How far is too far? Whether it's sexual or biological or whatever. Why do you want to jump toward the edge? That doesn't seem safe to me. Take a step back. I think they would look at the modern church and say, we're doing some things right. I think our emphasis on community is big. Like I said, as we talked about earlier, I need a people to adhere to. I need people who got my six. But we struggle hard. Why am I here? Where's my stance? Our church members can read as well as we can. And I'm old school enough to say I'd rather hold a Bible in my hand than tap the app. But my son's generation, they tap the app. He takes his phone with him and he takes an iPad with him and does his thing. I have to smell the ink. But we find answers in the same place. Mm-hmm. And the answers don't change. When you're dealing with these issues, Pilate's question of what is truth, Job's question of why am I here, and then the nature of God. The nature of God. Does God hate me or love me?
Yeah. And I think that's the struggle, because we have a lot of Christianity that lives and dies on the defense of God's existence without ever knowing or experiencing God. That, gnosko, the knowledge of experiencing God himself. Absolutely. And so we get trapped in this existence mode. And it's the same thing that James told the church there. He said, the demons know that Jesus exists and they tremble.
Yeah.
So we feel like our strongest position is existence. And the thing, I never find God trying to defend his existence. He never defends his existence.
That's right. Existence versus the encounter and the experience. Now, I don't, again, it's not blind faith. My world is saturated in evidential proof and truth. However, that doesn't save you. That just opens you up to salvation. It opens you up to knowing there's a God who loves you, a God who created you, a God who died for you. And I can present you 100 pieces of evidence for any one of those. But you got to know him. And you got to know, like you said, demons know and tremble. But if you knew that he died for you, and you understand that he designed you in a way and destined you for a life that is far greater than what you're experiencing right now, it's huge. The problem we have in our culture right now is that kids chase clout. What that means is that they base their existence on likes and looks. How many people have looked at what I've done and how many clicks and likes I've gotten. And they go up and down. That's why the suicide rate is this way. They go up and down based on what they feel is their import. Everybody wants to be an influencer. Problem is, the greatest influencer wants to do through you far greater things than you could build your castle on. And so I really, back to your original question, I think the church has done some things very good, because we have called people back, and we do call them in. And have we found a new way of worshiping? Sure. But you can't redefine truth. You can't redefine salvation. You can't redefine morality. There's a certain standard and a stick. And to use an illustration on the immigration issue, immigration's always been an issue. I'm an immigrant, but as I say loudly, legal. I came in legally. I followed the laws, as every country, 191 countries in the world, plus islands, and every country has immigration laws except for us right now. And so there is a right, there is a wrong, and there's a good way to do it and a bad way to do it. And I'm loud enough that I can get haters, but I think standing in the pulpit like you do, there's just not a lot of guys doing that out loud as much as we need.
So let's kind of wrap up on this with the question that most everybody wants to know in apologetics. I mean, when you sit there and talk about it, okay, I agree that God's there and all this kind of stuff, but if God's so good, why am I hurting?
Yeah. Or why is there
why is there evil? Why is there pain? I mean, that's the question that comes in. Everybody says, okay, they hold back on it, and then they go, well, all right, I'm fixing to drop the bomb. Yeah. So how do you respond to that person that says,
I love that. Yeah. And you can count on that every conversation. Somebody's going to say, if there's a God, why is there suffering? Why is there evil? Why are babies born with AIDS? Why is there death? Why is there poverty and starvation? All of them. And I have lived with this since the days of you and I, when we were together. Never blame God for stupid people. Evil doesn't exist because God's evil. The message of Scripture is clear. God loves you. He loves the world, died for the world, and he came to seek and save that which was lost. It was a ransom for many. But to the issue of evil, they think they got you, because they'll say, okay, if there's a God, why is there evil? And then they'll go, here, watch this. They'll say, either your God can fix it, but he won't, which means he's less than all loving, or he can't fix it, but he wants to, in which case he's not omnipotent. And it's called the confused dichotomy, because I say you're missing one element. Man, we choose evil. But here's the part that gets you. It's the classic C.S. Lewis argument. Choice, free will has to exist. And man, every choice chooses between the good and the better and the best. Every choice. Evil came into the world because choice came into the world. And as a matter of fact, the plus side of that is, if there is no choice, there's no love. Love exists because man has a choice. Worship exists because man has a choice. I can force you to marry me, which I thought for the longest time I'd have to do. Get somebody and pay him to love me. Marry me, go out with me, because I couldn't get anybody to love me. Well, guess what? Love is a choice. I can force you to marry me. I can't force you to love me. I can force you to sing. I can hold a gun to somebody's head and say, here you go. You got to sing, but you can't force them to worship, because worship is an act of the heart. So if you don't want evil, you don't want choice, and you don't want love. Love exists because we choose every day. Most of us don't choose between good and evil. We choose between good, better, and best. Our choices are incremental and small, but that's how wars start. It's how evil exists. It's how cancer develops, because somebody chooses a nicotine as opposed to something healthier. et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, Ergun, you have been a blessing in this, and I'm so thankful. Is there anything that you want to say in wrapping up what we've talked about today?
The God, I can point to a tree and say there's a God, but I'm more specific. There is a God who loves you. There's a God who wants to be your identity. Christ in you, the hope of glory.
Wow. Well, thank you, Dr. Ergun Caner, and thank you for being a part of Bucky Kennedy Ministries. I hope that you'll subscribe to all our stuff. Again, Ergun, tell them where they can find you.
Arlington Baptist University out here in Texas. You can get me there or get me on any of the social media. I'm usually stirring stuff up.
And it's a good follow. Again, you can follow us at Bucky Kennedy Ministries. Go to our YouTube channel. You can subscribe. You can certainly find our podcast on Spotify and Apple Play. You can download our app. Again, thank you for listening, and thank you for supporting Bucky Kennedy Ministries. God bless you. We'll see you again soon.
For more content like today's podcast, click right here. For sermons, click right here. And again, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Have a blessed day.